I've been introducing or being introduced to V for 30 years now. we we met in Sarajevo, of all places, just as the war had ended, uh, which is usually where you find V, uh, usually in the middle of the war. But the war had ended, and I was working for CNN at the time. And anyway, that was the beginning of an unbelievable friendship and relationship and a great gift in my life, as you are to the world. But I never know quite how to introduce her. So I just said, so do I say uh, activist, movement builder, who's built a movement to change the world? We'll talk more about that. Um, Artist, writer, performer. Um, is there any priority to any of that?
You know, I think of a line that Adrienne Rich once wrote. The moment feeling enters the body is political, right? And people often accuse people on the left of being political, but everybody's political. What we get defined as political. But if you make a decision not to have a point of view, that's political. If you make a decision not to stand up for something, that's political. And I think for me, all those things are one person now. I don't, when we were talking this morning about cognitive dissonance, it's a big problem we have in this country that one of us is over here and part of us is over here. And I just want to say, I'm holding the people in Minnesota in my heart right now because they are standing for all of us. They are the barricade between us and fascism. They are the barricade between us and slave trading KKK forces in our streets. And for me, my being an artist is no different than me being on the front lines in the barricades fighting for fascism. And what we've done in this country is we've made it so those of us who are political, those of us who have a point of view, those of us who are fighting for justice, for freedom, for civil rights, for women's rights, for LGBT, we become somehow the problem as opposed to the people who are eradicating everything amongst us. So yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I'm an activist. Yes, but really what I am is a human being. And I think the fact that we keep dividing ourselves into this or that when our humanity is what is driving us, you know.
Thank you, V, for doing what you always do, which is bring reality into our gatherings and remind us of
Disruptor of
the
pleasure. That's what I'm called.
no, a reminder of the intention behind this gathering to begin with. The intention was for all of us to think about what we can do. And we know we all have many things that we can do to address the issues that you have brought into our gathering now, but also in all other ways in which art and activism come together to create the social changes that we know must happen. And just to go back for a moment, the Sundance Film Festival has actually been a part of your artist and activist journey. And this might be a surprise to some people to realize that V. Ensler was actually a lab fellow.
I was in
In
1987. That's how old I am. Okay. But I'll tell you a really funny story. And I just want to say this woman is one of the great people on this planet and the greatest champion of women I have ever met. Period. All women, all women. But when I was a younger woman, I was working on a play about nuclear disarmament. And by the way, those of us who are fighting nukes, we knew then that nuclear arms and war would control the world. And it absolutely is true now. Everything that is happening is because there are nuclear weapons in the world. Anyway, I was working on this play with Shirley Knight. You may not know her. She was one of the great actors. And Joanne Woodward, who was astounding, was directing it. It was her first play. And we had traveled all around the country to nuclear test sites, to military, where we were getting booed and people were throwing. We just went everywhere bringing the message of ending nukes. And Joanne said, "I think you should go to Sundance." I didn't know what Sundance was. I didn't know what a film was. And she said, I'm going to call Bob Redford and I'm going to tell them that you need to be there to work on this and turn this into a film. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. So I end up in Utah. I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't know what a POV was. Okay. And I'm sitting in these rooms like, okay. But I remember this moment where I was in this room talking, and Mr. Redford came in and he said to me, "So tell me, what do you want to do with your film?" And I said, "I'm doing this film to end nuclear weapons, to stop the arms race so we don't end in Armageddon. And that's why I'm doing this." And he said, "That is a very good reason to make a film." And I'll tell you something, even though I didn't end up making a film, being at Sundance really encouraged me to be the person I was, politically, artistically, to not be afraid and to not back off from my politics and back off from what I believe. So it was profound.
And then the next time was when you came and performed the Vagina Monologues.
Yes.
And and while we know the Vagina Monologues, most of us in the room know that many of us have acted in it or been a part of it or produced it. Um, and that I assume most people know the story, but I say to V all the time, it needs to be repeated, because the idea that one piece of art, one play, could become the most transformative social movement, really, and the largest, maybe in the history of the world, in ending violence against women and girls. So just give us a brief understanding of what you came to in putting that together and what followed.
I just want to say something because this morning we were talking a lot about intention. Intention, like what is your heart's intention? I think everything is about intention. It's like if you have a vision of what you want and where you see it and you stay connected to that intention, it will manifest in the world. So I was really I actually got into a conversation with a woman who was going through menopause, and she started talking about her vagina, and she just started saying really freaky things about it, like it was dried up and it was prune-like and nobody wanted to visit it, and I was like, "Wow." And I was kinda shocked, you know? So then I said, "I don't know what women think about their vaginas," so I would just say to a friend, "What do you think about your vagina?" And the first woman said, "My mother said, 'Don't wear underpants underneath your pajamas, you need to air out your pussycat.'" And I thought, "Okay, this is insane." And it was really like and I'm talking about all kinds of women. White women, black women, Asian women, Hispanic women, everyone on the spectrum. And I had no intention of writing a play about vaginas because I was already a very, 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 very way downtown playwright. And I was sure that would like kind of secure my status, you know? But but what happened is I interviewed a woman who told me that she had a terrible experience when she was a young woman and she never had sex again. And I went, "Fuck that. Fuck that." The idea that women aren't gonna have sex because somebody humiliated her, and that really drove me to write the play. But I knew when I was writing it and when I began to get it, I was like, "Oh, I want vaginas to be free. That's what I want. I want women to be able to talk about their vaginas and look at their vaginas and see their vaginas, because if we can do that, then people can't violate us without us saying something about it, you know?" And back then, you couldn't say vagina on television, but you could say penis, okay? You couldn't say vagina anywhere. So doing it was like scary as shit at the beginning. The first time I did it, I thought I was gonna be shot. I was like, "All right, here we go." But what happened what always happens when you tell the truth, when you tell the truth, you know that making your film. When you tell the truth, all the people begin to resonate with the truth, and it begins to create a protective shield around you that you're almost in it you're wildly able to keep going. And then as we kept going, it was very clear every show, lines and lines of women would line up afterwards, and I thought, "Oh, they're gonna tell me about their great sex lives and their fabulous orgasms." No. 90% of women were lining up to tell me how they've been raped, how they've been battered, how they've been brutalized, how their vaginas have been cut, and I was like, "I can't handle this. I can't handle this." Like, either I'm gonna quit doing the show or I'm gonna do something with the play. So in 1998, we said, "Let's use this play to build a movement to end violence against women and girls," and we did our first big performance in New York City in 1998. I just went out and I asked every actor that I didn't know who was well known, and Marissa Tomei, bless her heart, I did know, And she had come to see the show, if you could believe this, with Joan Woman and Paul Newman sitting next to her. And I thought, oh my God, life is too insane. But I asked her and she said yes. So then I went to Glenn Close and I said, Marissa Tomei's doing it. And she said she is. Okay. And then I would just use every woman to go to the other woman. And we did this amazing performance for, I think, 2,000 people. It blew the roof off the theater. Everyone from Whoopi Goldberg to Lily Tomlin to Susan Sarandon. It was amazing. And that launched our movement in 1998. And literally since then, it just women are just fucking amazing. They took the play and they were like, I want to bring it here. I want to bring it to colleges. I want to bring it to Alabama. I want to bring it to Pakistan. I want to bring it to China. And everyone just took it. And we created a model. And I think this is really what I want to talk about. We don't have the models. We don't have the platforms. We don't have the delivery system of radical art. We're still relying on the capitalist engine to deliver to deliver our heart and our work. And we have to create new systems. So what we really did with the Vagina Monologues is I said, look, I'm going to give the play away once a year for free to anyone who wants to do it. But the deal is you have to raise money in your production and give it to women in your community who are fighting to end violence against women and girls. And so everybody was like down with it. And by the end of that time, those many, many years we were doing it, there were over, I don't know, 4,000, 5,000 places in the world every year that were doing the show all around the world. We've raised about $150 million from the vagina that could, right? But that's because it became a grassroots entity. People seized it, people took it, people made it theirs, put all their community members in it. I remember being, I think in like Mississippi or Alabama, and it was all Black women AT&T workers who all were working for AT&T doing the show. And I just sat there and I wept. I thought, oh my God, this has made it into the community. It's theirs. They own it. So part of it is like, how do we create art that we can both be flexible with, but also invite communities into? Please take this, steal this book. That's what Abby Hoffman told us. Steal it, take it, make it yours. Respect the work. Don't change the work, but use it for your community. And I'll just say one thing. I was in Pakistan years ago. We were doing work in Afghanistan, and the women did the first production of the Vagina Monologues in Pakistan, if you can imagine. Sort of like doing it in Indiana is comparable. And no, really, it was harder in Indiana. But I was sitting in that audience, and there was a veil, like a screen between the men who were being covered, and they were sitting behind it, women and there were a group of Pakistani women performing the Vagina Monologues in the most beautiful outfits, red and gold, and women laughing so hard their chadors were falling off. And I thought, this is what it means to be in global solidarity with women around the world. This is what it means to know that our struggles, just like now, our struggles are completely what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Venezuela, what's going on in Congo, what's going on in Sudan is no different than what's going on in the streets of Minnesota and all across this country. It's the same story of oppression, of fascism, of colonialism, of imperialism. And when we begin to connect our stories, and that's what art can do, it can show us that have so much in common that we can build off that solidarity. We can grow that solidarity so it becomes stronger than any forces that are moving against us. And right now, I want to say, we have always believed in this country, at least white people have, because Black people have known forever what's going on. This is not new for Black people. This is the story of 400 years of racism and slavery and Jim Crow. It's new for white people. But what we have never really understood is that we have to build a country that does not allow an inch of white supremacy, that doesn't allow an inch of misogyny, that doesn't allow an inch of treating workers and treating people like they don't matter. And what's happening now is we are being given the opportunity to do that. And that's going to come through our solidarity, and that's going to come through our art. Because right now, I'm going to say this to all of you, we are in an emergency. We can't be cognitively dissonant. Everyone's got to stop their life right now and put your attention on getting rid of ICE and getting rid of this fascist regime. There is no time to pause. You know, and I'm sorry, I'm just going on.
Apologizing for.
But I just want to say this about
Yeah.
Minnesota, because Minnesota didn't come out of the blue. Minnesota has been driven by high-powered women who have been building on the ground in that state, and particularly in Minneapolis, forever. They have built unions. They have built women's rights. They are the best around violence against women. They are the best around abortion. But what they're teaching us is that there is a solidarity going on there. There is something amazing happening there where white people are not performing. White people are not doing a favor. White people are not being, quote, allies. White people are engaged in this struggle because they know it is their struggle. It is not a separate struggle. And I think what we all have to understand right now is that this is our struggle. This is the struggle for the America we've always wanted, and we have an opportunity to bring it into being. And I want to say, for the artists, for the filmmakers, for the people in this room who have the capacity to do something about what is happening now, stop everything you're doing and do it. Make short films, write songs, write music, write poetry, do theater, write chants that people can do at rallies. Create your art. Remember that for those of you who weren't here in the 60s, I was born in the 60s. I was made in the 60s. I am a hippie from my head to my toe. And what I learned in the 60s is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay? And what I mean by that is our sexuality was alive in the 60s. Our life force was alive in the 60s, and we were having a lot of sex. Okay? That too. But what music did in the 60s is it brought us into consciousness. It brought us into each other. It connected us. It bound us. And we have to create the new 60s. We have to develop the art and the music and the films that are going to bring in the new world, because inside the word emergency is the word emerge. Okay? And we got to focus on the emergence, because we have the potential right now. If we are with each other, if we don't leave anyone out of this circle, if we include everybody in the story, and if we hold on to each other in a way where you cannot break us, we could actually birth the new America. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And it doesn't mean people aren't going to die, because I think people are going to die. I do. I don't think this is going to be like, oh, it's all said and done. But we're also going to live. We're also going to be born into another world. So artists in this room, producers in this room, funders in this room, fund work right now that will be the resistance, but the resistance that is actually going to birth the world.
Yeah. And that was the message that you wanted to bring today. And that was the intention of this gathering, that Jackie and the team that put this day together wanted this to be an invitation and an opportunity for all of us to think very deeply about that challenge you just issued. What is it that each of us can do? And there's no question, this is a room full of very powerful, influential people who have the ability to create the art, the music, the poetry, the chants, whatever it is. And that is what we need. Everyone keeps saying, well, I feel so full of fear, so full of despair for all the reasons that you've mentioned and others. What can I do? And today's invitation, I think, is to think about what it is that each of us can do. So can I come back just to a moment of what you've done? Because you can't say as an artist, well, I'm not sure that I'm going to make any real difference, when you look at how you have made a difference in the multiple books that have been written and the plays that you performed, and most recently with the new play about the climate crisis. Again, saying to people, we can't just ignore an existential crisis that could mean the end of human life on this planet. But you didn't write another book or another treatise. You wrote a musical. You wrote a musical.
And I hate musicals. So,
So talk about Dear Everything.
Dear Everything is really wonderful, if I do say so myself, because what's wonderful about it is that it's about young people, and it's about giving voice and allowing young people. I truly believe that I knew so much when I was young. I was so connected up with it. I was connected up with the power. I was connected up with the truth. I was connected with my passion. I was connected with my heart. And so much of the world is about tone it down, pull it back, don't be that, don't be that. And young people aren't there. They're still connected. And so this piece, I work with wonderful people. I work with an incredible pop artist named Justin Tranter, who's one of the biggest pop artists in LA. And I work with Diane Paulus, an incredible director, and a young lyricist named Carolyn Pinnell, and we created this kind of climate change uprising, and it's called Dear Everything, and we basically created a story that's narrated, that's sung, all the lyrics are and sung, and it's kind of a sung story that we just took all around the country. And I have to say, it was so moving and profound. We were actually in Salt Lake, and I'm gonna tell you a great story about Salt Lake. The lake is drying, as we all know. And the night we did the show here, when the show started, at the exact moment it started to rain. And it rained for the whole show, and it rained more than it has rained here in 120 years. Okay? So don't doubt the power of art. Don't doubt the power of intention. We had a theater full of thousands of people with their intention on making that lake be full and transforming the climate in Utah. But we toured the country and we created yet a similar but new model where we had a gorgeous young woman named Maya Penn, who is an amazing environmental activist and who's on the V-Day board. And she led the charge, and she literally created youth councils in every city who were responsible for gathering all the climate change groups in that city to come to the theater and be part of it and offer their goods and say what they were doing so everyone could plug in. We were able to raise and leave in every city $20,000 for groups. And we were able in every city to grab hold of choirs, because every city we went to, we take in children's choirs, teen choirs, who become part of our show. And they learn the choreography and they learn the songs, and then they get to perform with all the professionals in the show. So every city we went, we bought, and we were able to give away 90% of the tickets. So that meant that the people in this country who never get to see theater, which is working people because they can't afford it, we had farmers, we had nurses, we had workers, we had students, we had everybody in the theater. And people were coming up to me going, "I've never been to the theater before. This is the first time I've ever been to the theater." And we had such a beautiful turnout of people, like, just the energy was palpable, and I wanna keep touring the show, but what it really taught me is intention. If you intend to bring in working people and people who can't afford the theater, go out, and what I did is I asked people to basically fund each city. So I went to amazingly generous people, and I said, "Can you give $200,000 to invite your city to come to this show?" And they gave it, and then we were able to give away the tickets, and people loved it because they were like the host of the show. New model, new model. Broadway, $400, $500 a ticket. That's a joke. That's not theater. That's business. That's not theater. That's not art. That's exclusion, right? We have to start building art in a way where everybody gets to be part of it, because when we create work for the people, when we speak to the people, when we rise up the people then are part of the story. And right now, so many people feel outside the story. Yeah, that's why they've gone astray. They've turned to this crazy cultist fucking dedentia leader. I said the other night that I feel like we're possessed right now by something I'm calling dedentia, which is like demented daddy, white daddy energy. Like the whole planet seems to be possessed by one single insane white man who is just. And why are we possessed by him? Why haven't we just said, "You have to go"? Like, you're destroying the entire world, because in some way we are programmed, because so many of us had that demented father, I believe. I was one of them. Like, that we're so scared of making daddy upset. And what we all have to do is be willing to say, "No, we see you, Emperor's New Clothes. This is no longer tolerable in our world." But anyway, that's another subject. But like the way
Well,
the way we fight dedentia, the way we fight dedentia is by supreme solidarity and recognition that what is happening is not allowed to happen,
Yeah.
not on our watch. And everybody's got to stand up for that. Every single person in this country has to stand up for that.
And every single person in this country has one power that we can use, and it's called the vote.
Yeah.
And so, and we want to remind ourselves of that. But this is a room full of artists, again, who all of us who want the social change that we have actually now, through your work and the work of so many of the filmmakers who are in this room and at this festival, we know that if you tell the story well and compellingly, it will lead to change.
Yeah.
We have example after example in the book, the wonderful publication that Jackie and team put together. So, but the barriers remain of, well, if I do that, it won't get distributed. Or if I do that, I won't be accepted anymore. Somehow you have managed to do all these disruptive pieces of art, all this disruptive movements. So, what advice then? I mean, because that's going to be the question you're going to get now. How am I going to take my art, my writing, my play, my musical, my whatever, and create a movement around it?
Well, it goes back to the first question you asked me. Are you an artist or an activist? If you're an artist who is trying to move the notion of changing human consciousness into the world, you have to be an activist. You have to be an activist because you're working against what exists. You're working against a system that does not want that to happen, because to keep people numb, to keep people deadened, to keep people uneducated, to keep people uninspired is the work of capitalism and a racist, capitalist, sexist system. So you have to learn how to be the engineer of the systems that are going to move your work forward. You can't just say, I'm going to put my work into the world and think it's going to happen. I've spent as much work in my life raising money, convincing people, talking to people, building the systems with my incredible partner, Susan, who we've been in V-Day now for almost 30 years doing this work. How do you move it? How do you move your work into the world? And you can't sit around complaining about the fact that people don't want you. They don't want you. That's the fact. So when you know people don't want you, then you go, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to get all the people around me, because you need your posse, you need your coven, you need the people around you. And I've had incredible, incredible women behind me. And, women who I've met, women who I've gone out to dinners with, women who I've talked to, women who I've begged, women who I've cajoled. Please be part of this story with me. You don't need 100. You need about 5 to 10 really powerful people who will be behind you. You can even have 2 if they're powerful enough. But you have to go and find those people if you're really serious about doing the work of transforming human consciousness, because that's part of the story. And you can't whine about it and you can't complain about it. You just got to pick yourself up and keep doing it, because it's hard work. It's hard work. And there are people who don't like you, and there's people who, I know I don't get invited places. I know that. I don't care. I don't care. I know people would rather not see me coming, and that's all right. But you know what? You get to a point, one of the great things about being old, and don't let anybody tell you it's not great to get old, is you just don't give a shit anymore. You just don't give a shit.
But I don't want this group to wait until they get older.
No, no.
Like we are,
Yeah.
having been through a few of those battles. But
True.
Having served in the V-Day board, I've seen develop these movements, and it does take imagination, clearly, but it also takes a kind of courage. And I think that if you left a word with this group, all of whom I know are deeply inspired by watching the difference that your art has made and is continuing to make. But we all need those moments in the darkness of where we are now to be inspired, to remember, to know that we have this opportunity. So, what would that advice be?
This is what I'm going to say. I feel very emotional today. I think so much of the world is trying to convince us that we don't matter, that we just don't matter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there's categories of mattering less and less and less. Part of our work as artists, as human beings, is to really make a decision that we matter, and that what we say, what we do, what we create is necessary and is urgent and is needed. And part of that is to surround yourself with people who can mirror back to you how much you matter, how valuable you are, how incredible you are, how important you are. And what we're seeing in the time that we're living in, I think the worst thing that's happening right now for me, why I think I feel the most emotional, is that we're seeing people be re-traumatized. I heard a story the other day of a black man who was in a grocery store, and a white woman was helping him on one of those checkout machines, and he didn't get a receipt. And she said, "Oh, it's okay." And he said, "No, I can't leave the store without a receipt." And she said, "No, no, you can." He said, "No, I can't leave the store without a receipt." He said, "I'm a black man in America in this time." And he said, "Everything that was is happening again." And I don't know why. I just sat down and I wept for like an hour about the re-traumatization, the re-erasure, the remaking of people feel like they don't matter, like they're nothing. And our work right now is to raise our vibration, right? They're flooding the zone. We need to flood the zone. We need to flood the zone with our art, with our hearts, with our connection, with our love. We need to look at each other and look at each other in the eyes and say, "I got you, and I'm not letting you go." We need to flood the zone with compassion. We need to flood the zone with beauty. We need to flood the zone with joy. We need to flood the zone with anything that is the opposite of the cruelty and hate and unkindness they are putting in the world, because that is the thing that is eviscerating us. That's the thing that's making us afraid and tired, like we can't get. And you know what? A woman said to me the other night when I spoke here, she came up to me and she said, "Can I just ask you to say one thing the next time you talk?" She said, "Can you tell everybody to hold each other?" We need to hold each other. We need to look out for the people who are disappearing, who are fragile, who are vulnerable. And right now, there's many people who can't leave their houses because they can't eat. There's many people who could be disappeared. Find them. Reach out to them. Know who they are in your neighborhood. Know who the vulnerable is. We're all being asked right now to be bigger, bolder, more generous, and certainly more braver than we've ever been.
Thank you, B. Yeah. Thank you, B.
Thank you. Thank you all. Buckeyes.
Anna, save her another minute. No, don't go. Do you want to say something?
Oh,
Don't go.
I'm so emotional. B, thank you for that. But we know in order to do all this, Jackie, what is it going to take?
Money.
Exactly. Next
Money.
conversation.
Well, I just want to, Pat, now I'm going to cry again because for over 15 years, I think, without a miss, we have somehow had moments together to talk during the Sundance Film Festival in Park City. And I was sitting there recognizing that this is probably the last time that you're moderating something here in Park City. I think this is,
Oh, no.
now I'm going to make you friggin' cry but I just want to say how, if not everyone is here this morning, we've had a full day of programming, but I just want to thank Pat, and you said it, V, and just being always the one to champion for women's voices, where they show up. I shared that how much Pat has been about my journey with Sundance and the film festival and funding women, and I mean, you said it, V, when you spoke earlier. So I just want to thank you, V, for coming and always and everything you said and then some. And when we talk about money in the next panel, I want to invite you to share a few things that you have shared with us about vaginas and money and how they go. There's a lot of common denominators there.
Can I say one thing about Pat?
Yes.
Can I
say anything?
Yeah, I'm just going to do this. Because I love this woman more than I even have words to say. But I just want to tell you how I met her. When we were in Bosnia doing a play of mine at the National Theater of Bosnia, which literally had holes and bullet holes all over it right after the war, and we had brought all these refugees back, Glenn Close was in the show, and she called Pat and she told her to come. And Pat literally got on an airplane and flew there. She didn't even know what it was. And when she walked into the theater, Glenn had been doing the Vagina Monologues, and she had done the cunt piece. And when Pat walked down the aisle, she said, "You fucking cunt, you came." And Pat was like, "What?"
I came to Sarajevo to be called a cunt.
Okay. It was amazing.
Well, that
She
was
has
the
been flying
beginning.
in ever since, really. Really.
Thank you all. Thank you, V.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
So we are taking a little break for networking. I will invite you. So if I haven't met everyone, I'm Jackie Zahner. I am the founder of SheMoney. And with Madison and our incredible team, we have put together this day of programming for you. I will say a quick thing while you're networking. So one of the challenges with women's voices is because we rely on technology and companies that don't necessarily hold space for us to tell our own stories and keep us safe in the digital world. So there is a female forward by women for women new social platform. Think Twitter, think Blue Sky, by women for women, without ads, without controlling algorithms. It's called Up. It's called Up Social. So if you have a minute, scan it. Show up on Up. I love that. Show up on Up. We'd really love for more people. And there's, as you know, and unless we create places of our own, we have to rely on spaces that maybe aren't designed for us or by us. And there's just too much online misogyny and hate, and we can create and do something different. So take a break to network each other. We're going to be back in half an hour, Madison. Half an hour talking about my favorite topic, money.